One African man shakes hands with former US President Ronald Reagan. The name of this man, whose trademark is leopard-print hat, is Mobutu Sese Seko. He was president of the Republic of Zaire, now the Democratic Republic of the Congo, in Central Africa, for 32 years between 1965 and 1997. Mobutu received large amounts of aid from the US and other Western countries, but in reality appropriated the country and monopolized wealth and power. During Mobutu's dictatorship, the Congolese economy hit rock bottom, and many Congolese citizens starved to death. Let us look into the Congo's history, from the period of great turmoil after independence from Belgian colonial rule, to the dictatorship of Mobutu, a puppet of the West, and to the Second Congo War, also known as Africa's World War. Hello everyone, I'm Kanta. A country with everything but peace. The Democratic Republic of the Congo in Africa is also referred to as such. In the first half of the video uploaded recently, I explained the history of the country from the days of the slave trade to the Belgian colonial period. This video is the second half. In the second half, I will explain the period of confusion after independence from Belgium to the Second Congo War, which was called Africa's World War. Please watch until the end. The Congo had been a private property of King Leopold II of Belgium since 1885, and a colony of the Belgian state since 1908, but it was in 1958 when the independence movement in the Congo suddenly gathered momentum. The leader of the movement for independence from Belgium was Patrice Lumumba, who would become the first prime minister of the Congo after independence. Lumumba had led a nationwide anti-colonial movement since the 1950s, before the Congo became independent. Several Congolese political parties emerged during this period, all of which argued for immediate independence from Belgium. As the independence movement heated up, Belgium was forced to recognize the independence of the Congo. Why was Belgium forced to recognize Congolese independence? The main reason is the trend of the times. At this time, more than 10 years after the end of the Second World War, independence movements were widely spreading in other African countries, such as the British and French colonies. Belgium also thought that it was no longer inevitable that demands for independence would spout out from among the Congolese people. Then, in 1960, the Congo gained independence from Belgian colonial rule. On June 30th of 1960, an independence ceremony was held in the Congolese capital, Leopoldville, now Kinshasa. Baudouin, then King of Belgium, made remarks at the independence ceremony as follows: "The independence of the Congo is the end result of the achievement of my grandfather, Leopold II, who once created the Congo Free State. The Congo's independence is the culmination of civilization." During Leopold II's ruling, millions died in the Congo as locals were subjected to forced labor for the collection of natural rubber. Despite the past exploitation of the Congolese people for Belgian interests, the Belgian king tried to glorify such history. The King of Belgium affirmed that his colonial ruling had rested on his love and protection. The King of Belgium's affirmation of colonial ruling was coherently criticized by Lumumba, who led the Congolese independence movement. Lumumba, who was given the task of speaking after the Belgian king, began by addressing not the Europeans, but the Congolese people, that is, men and women of the Congo, who had been exploited for so long. What we experienced was extremely hard labor, demanded in exchange for very low wages, too low for us to eat, wear clothes, or live properly. We have undergone punishment, set down, and physical abuse day and night, simply because we are black. The Congo's independence was the result of our all-out struggle associated with much bloodshed. None of the Congolese will ever forget this. Lumumba was a bitter critic of European colonial ruling. The Congolese people who listened to Lumumba's speech via radio were delighted by its piquant content and strongly encouraged by his message. However, there was also criticism over radical independence movements led by Patrice Lumumba. This is because the Congo was not fully prepared for independence as a country. For example, at the time of independence from Belgium, only 21 out of Congo's total population of about 10 million people had graduated from university. The root cause of this low number of university graduates was that Belgium provided virtually no higher education to the Congolese people during its colonial ruling. The absence of highly educated elites in the Congo also meant that, after independence from colonization, there were no suitable human resources to take over sophisticated tasks from the Belgians. In addition, the mid-20th century, when the Congo gained independence, was a time of Cold War between the capitalist camp led by the US and the socialist camp led by the Soviet Union. Countries such as the US and Belgium were highly dependent on the Congo, which had abundant natural resources. Although they allowed the Congo to become independent, they did not want to give up their interests in the natural resources in the Congo. This was the real intention of the Western European countries. Due to unpreparedness for independence and the importance of its abundant natural resources at the height of the Cold War, the Congo entered a period of great turmoil after independence. After becoming Congo's first prime minister, Lumumba insisted that the Congo's natural resources be used for the benefit of the Congolese people, declaring that we will no longer let foreign powers have their way after nearly 100 years of exploitation by Western powers. However, Lumumba's attempt to nationalize natural resources was very inconvenient for the Western countries that had previously depended on the Congo. For example, cobalt, an essential resource for making bombs, existed only in the Soviet Union and the Congo in the world, so the Western countries, led by the US, desperately desired the natural resources in the Congo. In particular, the Katanga province in the south of the Congo, where the Belgian-founded mining company Union Minières was based, was the region with highest concentration of cobalt, copper, and other resources. Since the greatest economic benefits were generated from Katanga province, Belgium did not want to give up its interest in the province, even if the Congo became independent. As a result, even though Belgium recognized the Congo's independence, it sent troops to Katanga province in an attempt to keep its influence on the rich mining region by making it an independent state. Belgium instigated Moise Tshombe in Katanga province to foment anti-government activities, which eventually ignited domestic warfare on July 6 of 1960. The Congo fell into chaos immediately after independence. In order to bring the situation under control, Lumumba requested the deployment of UN troops, but as he found the United Nations reluctant to intervene in Katanga, he then approached the Soviet Union for assistance. This was very inconvenient for the US, which was at odds with the socialist camp led by the Soviet Union. The US treated Lumumba as a communist and conspired with Belgium to assassinate him. At this time, Mobutu, who would later become president of the Congo, received support from the US and staged a coup d'etat. Mobutu was a military general at the time. Following the coup d'etat by Mobutu, Patrice Lumumba was arrested. On January 17 of 1961, Lumumba and two comrades were executed by white mercenaries in the middle of the night after being dragged out of a plane at the airport. Behind this was a US-Belgian plot to treat Lumumba as a communist. In 1960, the year before his assassination, Lumumba was interviewed by a French newspaper and responded about his being treated as a communist as follows: "This is a propaganda ploy aimed at me. I am not a communist. The colonialists have been campaigning against me throughout the country because I am a revolutionary and have been calling for the abolition of colonial ruling, which gave no regard to our human dignity. They must be seeing me as a communist because I refuse to be bought off by the imperialists." Lumumba, also known as the father of independence of the Congo, consistently criticized colonialism and fought for Congolese freedom and sovereignty. Shortly before his assassination, Lumumba made his testament as follows: "History will one day have its say. It will not be the history taught in the United Nations, Washington, Paris, or Brussels, however, but the history taught in the countries that have rid themselves of colonialism and its puppets." After Patrice Lumumba's assassination in 1965, Mobutu Sese Seko, then chief of the General Staff of the National Army, was appointed president with the support of the USA. This was the start of Mobutu's 32-year dictatorship in the Congo. After Mobutu's inauguration, the country's name was changed from the Congo to Zaire. Since the name of Zaire was used until 1997, relatively older people may be more familiar with the country name Zaire than the Congo. Mobutu, the dictator who ruled Zaire for 32 years, was given an appellation as the Congolese version of Leopold II. As mentioned in the previous video, Leopold II was the King of Belgium who ruled the Congo as his own private property between 1885 and 1908. President Mobutu's trademark was his cane and leopard-print hat. This was a traditional African symbol of power. From his appearance, you may think as if he represented the African people in some way. However, the reality was that Mobutu was a puppet of the West. Mobutu had abandoned Lumumba's policy of nationalization of resources and continued to sell off large quantities of natural resources to foreign countries such as the US and Belgium. The US, which is supposed to hold democracy as an important value, turned a blind eye to the dictatorship of Mobutu's regime and continued its financial and military support in order to prevent Soviet Union, the hostile country, from taking away the Congo's abundant natural resources. Of all the African countries south of the Sahara, President Mobutu received the most generous support from the US. International organizations also provided financial aid to the Congo during this period, but the aid did not help poor people living in the Congo, and the fund was often diverted illicitly by President Mobutu. President Mobutu's illicit financial reserves are estimated to have reached approximately $5 billion, and he owned luxurious villas around the world and kept several hidden bank accounts. During Mobutu's dictatorship, Congolese politics became corrupt and the economy hit rock bottom, leading to many Congolese citizens starving to death. Meanwhile, Mobutu's own personal life was extravagant, with lavish presidential palaces and private residences. However, the US and European countries turned a blind eye to Mobutu's corrupt politics. As long as they could secure their own economic interests, the mineral resources of the Congo, the West really did not care whether the Congolese people were oppressed, poverty-stricken, or starving to death. For example, George H.W. Bush, who later became the 41st President of the United States and at the time worked for the US intelligence agency CIA, Bush the father, not the son, called President Mobutu of the Congo one of my most valuable friends. It was not only the US and Europe that favored President Mobutu. Japan did as well. For example, when President Mobutu visited Japan in 1971, the Showa Emperor troubled himself to receive Mobutu at Haneda Airport. It would be unimaginable today that the emperor himself travels in order to receive an African president arriving at Japan. Western countries, including Japan, needed President Mobutu to continue handing over the Congo's resources. Although President Mobutu privatized the country and monopolized wealth and power, Western countries generously supported the Congo with the desire to keep access to its resources, and as a result continued to support his dictatorship. Thanks in part to the resources obtained from the Congo, countries such as the US, Europe, and Japan grew economically, but as a result they supported President Mobutu's dictatorship for a long period of time, which led to the sacrifice of ordinary Congolese citizens and contributed to the poverty and inequality that still exist today. Mobutu's dictatorship, which lasted for more than 30 years, was suddenly overthrown by a military coup in 1997. By this time, the US had already lost interest in the Congo, as it already no longer had to worry about the threat of Soviet Union, as the 1989 Malta talks had ended the Cold War. In 1997, rebels led by Laurent Kabila, who was supported by the Congo's neighbors Uganda and Rwanda, overthrew the Mobutu regime. This period of conflict is known as the First Congo Conflict. However, upon assuming the presidency, Laurent Kabila attempted to exclude foreign powers such as Uganda and Rwanda from the Congo. As a result, the conflict erupts again. This leads to a large-scale conflict involving rebel groups in the Congo and neighboring countries. This is the Second Congo Conflict. In 1998, 3 countries, Rwanda, Uganda, and Burundi, invaded the Congo to overthrow the Kabila regime and intensified the battle against it, while winning the rebels in the Congo to their side. Kabila's side, on the other hand, counterattacked by receiving support from nearby countries such as Zimbabwe, Angola, Namibia, Chad, and Sudan. In this way, the Second Congo Conflict, which involved more than 8 nearby countries, developed into a battle of such a large scale that it was dubbed as Africa's World War. Uganda and Rwanda intervened in conflicts in the Congo, ostensibly to attack their own rebels inside the Congo, but in reality they also wanted to acquire the rich natural resources lying in the Congo. In fact, Uganda and Rwanda were found to have taken away large quantities of mineral resources from the Congo during the conflicts. For example, Rwanda took away large quantities of tantalum, one of rare metals. This tantalum is a resource needed to manufacture electronic equipment, such as laptop computers and gaming devices. Although there was almost no recorded production of tantalum in Rwanda until 2000, the amount of production is reported to have risen to 95 tons in the following year, 2001. Tantalum taken out of the Congo has brought enormous wealth to Rwanda. Although the country was devastated by the civil war of 1994, in which more than 500,000 people were killed, Rwanda subsequently achieved rapid economic growth, which has been described as a miraculous recovery. One aspect of this economic growth in Rwanda was in fact the contribution of resources brought in from the Congo. However, it was not only Rwanda and Uganda that wanted the natural resources of the Congo. Rather, it was the US and European countries that really wanted to get hold of Congo's resources. The US and European countries were behind Uganda and Rwanda, which intervened in the conflicts in the Congo and took large amounts of mineral resources away from the Congo. In fact, most of the mineral resources taken out by Uganda and Rwanda were not consumed in their own countries, but mostly exported to Western countries. This fact was condemned in a UN report, which exposed that more than 70 companies were involved in the expropriation of minerals related to conflicts in the Congo, the so-called conflict minerals. Some of these companies had been awarded contracts to extract huge amounts of minerals in return for helping to finance the war effort. By the end of 2002, a peace agreement was reached, and the Second Congo Conflict, also known as the World War in Africa, seemed to have been settled. However, various armed groups that emerged during the conflict kept causing sporadic incidents, particularly in the Eastern Congo, while continuously changing their forms through joining and/or breaking up. Although several ceasefire agreements have been signed since 2003, they have not been fully functional, and the conflict continues to this day. It is estimated that more than 6 million people lost their lives as a result of the conflicts in the Congo. It is a little known fact that the number of casualties counted in conflicts in the Congo is higher than those of any other wars occurred in the world since World War II. Of the 6 million people who lost their lives as a result of conflicts in the Congo, more than 90% died not directly from combat actions, but from preventable or treatable diseases due to limited access to food, medicine, and other resources. It could be said that global indifference towards the Congo has led to the enormous loss of innocent lives. This country has natural resources that are coveted by the rest of the world. However, abundance of natural resources was the very reason why it has been exploited for 500 years by foreign powers who coveted them. A history of exploitation born of human greed. The history of the Congo can be summed up in such a phrase. Through the first and second halves of this video, we have looked at the Congo's history of the past 500 years. Some of you may have felt helpless when you learned about a problem that is too big to solve. To be honest, making this video was a depressing work also for me. Unfortunately, however, the history of the country of Congo and the problems still occurring there today are largely unknown. A problem only becomes a problem when people recognize it as such. Conversely, if people don't know about it, it is equivalent to not existing. No matter how big a problem may be, it all starts with knowing about it. Being interested is the first step. If there was anything that impressed you in any part of this video, please share it with your family and friends around you. You may be small, but you are not powerless. You can at least share something with others to help. I hope that this video will help to increase the number of people who are interested in the Congo and Africa. Since I tried to explain the history of the Congo over 500 years in this video, some of the items have been rushed through. The content I deal with on YouTube has many heavy themes, and some people may find it depressing. However, learning about the world we live in is also a way of rethinking our own position. Looking at the world and rethinking our own position in it may also provide us with an opportunity to think about the meaning of life. What is the purpose of life? Let's keep our eyes on the world together. Please don't forget to click the like button and subscribe to my channel. Thank you again for watching to the end. See you again in the next video.